Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about 3 really crucial things fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance need to do to succeed in a romantic relationship together. Before I dive in, we are still doing a sale to support our community. It's 25% off all membership bundles right now. We're doing 4 live webinars a week. We have over 30 courses and over 100 previously recorded webinars on basically every topic you can imagine that gives you breakthroughs, worksheets, workbooks, and actual tangible steps to reprogram and transform any area of your life that you feel challenged in. And if you're getting a lot out of this YouTube channel, the courses are literally like 100 times more in depth, more transformational, and they really get to the root of things at a much deeper level because I have more time to go into things and give you tangible steps at the core level for any problem that you may or may not be experiencing. So coupon code is with you. It's all one word, and I'll put a link in the description box below and on this video so you can just select it and head over to the school and join our really beautiful community. So let's talk about this content for today. Now, the biggest reason I tend to find that the relationship dynamic hurts for the fearful avoidant in the relationship is when they are with the dismissive avoidant and the dismissive avoidant is in a state of dismissing or withdrawing or stonewalling. Often the fearful avoidant gets triggered in their core wounds of feeling unworthy, unimportant, unseen, like they don't matter. And these are really strong pain points for the fearful avoidant at a subconscious level. And so that tends to be one of the biggest challenges. Now, at the same time, something that they appreciate about the dismissive avoidant is dismissive avoidants, because of their lack of volatility, tend to make the fearful avoidant feel safe. And even though a lot of fearful avoidants don't tend to identify with the core wound of I am unsafe, it's something they all tend to experience, but they become masterful at coping with that by either learning how to super stand up for themselves when necessary, or by becoming hypervigilant to try to read their environment and interpret everything. But even the act of being hypervigilant is some kind of compensation for some kind of fear or lack of feeling safe on a regular basis at a deeper, more subconscious, almost unconscious level. And so when this relationship dynamic happens, those are the really strong pain points for the fearful avoidant. Now, the dismissive avoidant, and where they get really triggered by the FA, is through the volatility that takes place. Because the fearful avoidant can sometimes be really loving, really warm, really open, extremely supportive, and then other times when they're hurt, they can become emotionally volatile or pull back, and that hot-cold shift takes place a lot in this dynamic. As a result of that, that triggers the dismissive avoidant's need for safety in a relationship, predictability, consistency, security. They really get their needs met for feeling supported, loved, seen, understood, all these different things. But when the fearful avoidant is triggered, there can be like major pain points for the DA in terms of just the emotional volatility that can be really disheartening and stressful for a DA. So there are different things that need to occur at each of the 6 stages of relationships. If you're not familiar already, Dr. Susan Campbell has 5 stages of relationships, and I've sort of like extrapolated that and added a 6th stage because I really felt like one was missing, which is the dating stage or the early vetting stage. And obviously the 3 steps that need to take place are different at each of the stages. I do have advanced attachment style courses in the school that go through like literally what is needed at every single stage and what you need to make your relationship successful with different attachment styles in each of the 6 stages, but I'm just going to talk about an overarching set of themes that really apply to this video. And if you want to know what the 6 stages are, just really at a high level, it's the dating stage, the honeymoon stage, then we have the power struggle stage, which has really important rites of passage in it, followed by the stability stage, commitment stage, and lastly the bliss phase. And this is really what we're trying to achieve in our relationships. This is what makes them lasting and harmonious. So at a very high level for the DA and the FA to get to this point, some things that really need to change. Number 1, fearful avoidants must absolutely learn how to communicate their needs to their dismissive avoidant partner. They have to be able to express themselves, speak up for their needs, learn to take up space, because one of the biggest challenges in this dynamic is that the fearful avoidant will overgive and underreceive because it's part of a coping mechanism or strategy to earn their worth from their loved ones so they can feel safe. But in the dynamic of doing this, they can feel really taken advantage of by the dismissive avoidant, not necessarily realizing that to a certain degree, they're actually taking advantage of themselves to try to receive love from somebody outside of them because of those core wounds of feeling unworthy of just showing up and being loved. And so what must take place is that a fearful avoidant needs to reprogram that aspect by learning to take up space consistently as a human being, learning to have boundaries, learning to have needs, to meet your own needs, to express your needs to others, and to actively receive those needs from others. And this especially applies to the dismissive dynamic. And as a sort of side note here that's really important is that a fearful avoidant also has to be able to communicate strategies to get those needs met. They can't just say, I need more love or I need connection. It needs to be, I need love or connection, and it looks like XYZ. It looks like you using words of affirmation to validate me. It looks like you, taking out the garbage or cooking breakfast. And it has to be very specific. And the dismissive avoidant craves this in a relationship. It's so important for them and actually positively impacts their desire for certainty and safety and security to have all the details of what it looks like. And dismissive avoidants often have a really strong pain point or core wound around being defective by not knowing naturally how to interact in human behavioral dynamics. And so it helps them to avoid that when they know exactly what you're looking for. So if they don't hear how you want to be loved, sometimes they can be like, I don't know how to give love in the way this person wants because I've been trying and it's not being received. And then they'll just feel like, wow, I'm defective or something's wrong with me. This is too hard. I'm incapable. And they'll feel shame. And shame is the emotion that makes somebody really want to hide. Okay. So point one is fearful avoidance really learning how to communicate their needs. Point number two is that one of the top 3 relationship destroyers is actually emotional volatility. And sometimes this is really important for fearful avoidance to hear, because I think often for the FA, it can feel so justified when you're in pain to express that pain. But sometimes the way you express it can really deeply impact people, and we can be blinded by it when we're in it. And this can create volatility in a relationship dynamic, which can create long-term challenges and pain points between you as the FA and anybody that you love or you really care for. And so what's an absolute necessity is that dismissive avoidance to their fearful avoidant partner learn to communicate their desire for safety and congruency and security, as well as how much criticism. And sometimes when the fearful avoidant is built up with frustration because they've perceived an imbalance in the relationship dynamic for so long as they overgive and underreceive, sometimes then by the time they do express, it comes out like a volcano erupting. And this can be extremely excruciating for the dismissive avoidant who has a lot of wounds around criticism, defectiveness, not being capable, and not being safe. And this can be a huge point of contention between these two styles that absolutely must be resolved. So these are 2 first really important points. Fearful avoidance communicating their needs, dismissive avoidance communicating their needs and their triggers and their wounds. Because fearful avoidance, once they understand, they tend to be really loving and they really want to look out for these things and they do their best. But with a lack of understanding, they often see the dismissive avoidant as sort of being like somebody with all their walls up and not really being affected by anything and just withdrawing. And sometimes they can't properly empathize with their dismissive avoidant partner if the dismissive avoidant isn't giving a whole lot to empathize with or around, right? And the last really important thing I would say is that both styles learn to share from a space of like super transparency, almost over explaining. Number one, because this helps fearful avoidance to feel even safer. And it opens up communication dynamics between the two. The more there's sharing, the more there's expressing of emotions, the more the fearful avoidant leads by doing that especially, it makes it okay and acceptable for the dismissive avoidant partner. I have heard so many individuals who are dismissive avoidant over the years say, I didn't communicate much, but once I was with my fearful avoidant partner, but usually they say like my wife or my husband or my, my partner here. Once I was with this person who was always sharing, always vulnerable, it just made it feel okay for me to be that way too. And not only does this help fearful avoidance to trust more, because fearful avoidance trusts through the more transparency they have, but it also allows dismissive avoidance to start healing within themselves because they start to practice being vulnerable and seeing over time, even though it can take a little bit of time and consistency, they see that, oh, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share. It actually feels good to express. And that starts to heal some of those core wounds that they are carrying with them around vulnerability being unsafe. And it's really an absolute necessity for 2 parties in a relationship, especially to make it all the way to the bliss phase, to access their vulnerability, share their feelings, share their needs, share their wounds and fears, so that the dynamic can make it to the bliss phase. That is part of a rite of passage for healthy relationships to work. So, there's so much more I could say about this dynamic. There's a tremendous amount of content on this inside of the Personal Development School, especially in our advanced attachment style courses, which go through each of the 6 stages of relationships in these areas. So if you want to learn more, jump in there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel. And I will see you in the next video.